Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rich Scheivner, but you can call me Dr. Rich. Welcome back to um, our winter edition of live streams for Get Writ Live. Always got to say that with an exclamation point because it's Get Writ Live. We always talk about things writing here on the program. And let me just have that small talk with you all for a bit. It's a cold day. It's so cold. It's really cold in my office right now. It's really cold outside, so hopefully you're bundling up. If you're coming to campus, make sure you bundle up on the way and stay safe as always. All right, so we're going to get into a very timely and interesting topic here today. And as we go, we're going to be talking about writing prompts and things of that sort. And I think right now what we're going to talk about today is very important for professional writers and for many people in education. There's a lot of conversations going on there already, which are out in the public sphere, especially about artificial intelligence and writing. Doing a quick cursory review of videos on YouTube and so forth. There are already many things out there about things like ChatGPT and Lex and things that are helping us in different ways, for better or worse, as people may say. They're helping us get ideas out on paper and things like that. So this is a very interesting time. It's kind of a banner year, I might say, for writing and AI and invention, questions of plagiarism, copyright, things like that. So if you're watching this later on, feel free to contribute in the comments as well. I may even do like a second video on this on a more async stream, just about some tools and ways to think about AI and writing as well. Okay, but to begin, I want to say a couple things. As is tradition now here on the stream, again, welcome. I'd like to thank Dr. John Suffren and the Writing Center staff, as well as the Writing Department writ large, for all of its support in doing this live stream each and every Wednesday throughout the term. So we're here until April 5th. Barring any kind of breaks and so forth, you'll be seeing me right here every Wednesday, 11:30 to 1, talking about just a range of issues. So today we're on writing and artificial intelligence. Next week we'll be talking about writing as and anti-racism, collaborating, traveling, revising, virtual reality, intervening in a conversation, composing that lit review, and then presenting kind of in multimodal forms, and then finally composing yourself. So what does that mean to compose yourself, whether it's on social media, or we can think about the emotional kind of element to composing, and how writing may help us in that way. So that's what we got. Again, big thanks to the department, Writing Center, and Dr. John Suffren for the support. If you are interested in the Writing Center, every time I say this on the stream, I can't say it enough. We have one-on-one appointments all throughout the week, and even on the weekends. We have them in person. We have them virtually as well. We even have a resource in which you can submit papers asynchronously and then get feedback. We have drop-in sessions. We even partner with libraries and so forth, libraries here on campus, for drop-in sessions. We have an accessibility specialist. Lots of different options for you. We also have other workshops that are part of our program. So if you're interested in things that are coming up, let me just give a little self-plug on that. But we've got a couple things here. So this week we're actually doing one on research methods tomorrow. So yours truly will be behind that, talking a little bit about that as well. We've also got some great things on anti-racist writing, as well as sentence revisions, organizing your draft, analyzing your argument, etc. And these are all hosted by the department, by faculty in our department. And I love talking about that as well. As it's kind of a bit more, formalized, because it's on Zoom and so forth. But you'll get a lot of great information if you come to those as well. And they're totally free. All of these things you're doing are totally free, or that we have offered for everybody are totally free. So do check those out as well. If you are working on anything from ideation on a paper to its final delivery, or you're needing some line editing sort of at the last minute. But let's turn to the topic, because I think what this is really relevant to Writing Center work as well, because oftentimes when you're coming to a writing center, you're looking for ideas. You need a soundboard, right, in some way. You want to use maybe the instructor or the tutor, so to say, as a sounding board to get some ideas out there in the world. And what we're kind of seeing now with these programs we're going to talk about in a second is looking for assistance in, more sort of web-based ways through artificial intelligence. So what can artificial intelligence do for us when we are thinking about writing and things like that? What's at stake for us? What's interesting? So I'm going to talk about two things mostly for this. And then again, depending on our time, I may end up doing just another one of these in a more asynchronous way, just so we can kind of really flex out what's possible with this. And yeah, so the first thing I'm going to talk about, it's called Lex. The two things, I guess I should back up real quick. The two things I'm going to talk about in terms of programs, and there are more that are even coming out, I'm going to say, at the time of this. So who knows, by the time you're checking this out, if you're checking this out on demand, there could be even more projects that are out there. So this one is lex.page. It is an AI-assisted writing program where you can ask it kind of questions and then it will give you answers. The other one is ChatGPT, which is really hot right now because it came out in late November of 2022 and continues to make its name in the public sphere. It's by a startup company, OpenAI, and essentially what these have done are programmed these kind of language models and so forth, so that when you ask questions of it, it gives you many possible responses, but makes its best judgment. Now, I will just qualify this by saying, or preface this by saying, I am not an expert in AI by any means, but I'm interested in seeing what I could do as a writer to explore its possibilities. And I think that while we do have experts that are, can tell you very quickly what's under the hood and what that means, and they're doing really exciting research in this area, mine is mainly to see what we could do for genre, invention, and other purposes in terms of writing studies. So that's the lens I'll bring to this. And really it's exploratory, right? Because we're learning a lot about this as we go. And a number of videos I've even seen don't even cover some of this background stuff. They kind of just move right into the task, because what the public is mostly interested in is, how can we make use of this? What can it do for me? So OpenAI has trained this model through reinforcement learning, as they kind of call it. But what you can see here is you give it a prompt, you give it a kind of question. You might give it some code. You might ask it clarifying questions, or it might ask you those. And then it gives you a response. Now, if you want to see more about this, I will put this in the chat as well so that you can read a bit about it. But what they have here is, a number of background sort of context for how the model has worked. And you can kind of see here the steps is you might ask it for a prompt like explain reinforcement learning to a 6-year-old. And there are possible paths and so forth that it can interpret and then give you a response in that way. And again, kind of getting a little bit more under the hood, we might say, they've done a lot of work so that it's giving you a pretty accurate response that you would expect. And it could do it very quickly because there's so many different scenarios it's interpreting. So that's at least the way that I've interpreted it when we look at this sort of work. But the goal for really is it's supposed to give you very close or possible answer, plausible sounding answers that feel conversational, right? But what they kind of point out here is that it may be incorrect or nonsensical, right? It's going to give you hypothetical sort of scenarios. And what I think is interesting about this is sometimes, even if that's nonsensical, it still gives you what I might say is like a sensible shape of an argument or an outline. So we've kind of got that as well going on, but largely it is an artificial intelligence language learning model that we see for sort of dialogue. But really, you give it a command, you say do this thing, and it gives you a response. So yeah, very interesting to be thinking about. And there's more on that as well. And Lex is kind of doing a similar thing too. So if we look at like, we'll say Lex writing tool, writing AI. Let's just see how they give their overview of it. Now it really just takes me right to the page at this point, but there's a lot of public information on there. But it's basically a word processor that they've sort of framed with AI baked in. And even since I started looking at this, a few weeks ago, things have changed. So both of these, as we'll sort of see, this one might be more writing centric, we can kind of say, but I think lately I would argue that this has been overshadowed lately by ChatGPT and sort of what people have been doing with that. So let's look at this one first, because I think this one is the most writing centric. Some of the things that I've just, sort of written about, like here. So what we get with Lex, for example, and it's, still sort of in its testing modes. You'd have to get a sort of permission to get into it. And there's actually a couple as well. If you're interested, I have a couple I would be willing to share. Just feel free to write me privately, and we can talk about that. But this is one that I had been punching in, and it's giving me a lot of different like prompts and kind of ideas here. What's interesting about this is it tells you what parts were written by the AI and what parts were written by you. Now, that was before I noticed its sort of feature. So let me back up and just start a new doc so you can see how everything works. So we have here like a title, right? We can write our own title, or we can get one that's suggested. So let's just say we say something like test argument. And we go enter, and then we can start. Enter to start with a blank page. So we go here. So I see like a little bit of jankiness sometimes when I'm working with these things. So with this one, what you can do is talk to AI. So it's almost like a chat window that it has open that can give you some good ideas. What I've done this, and the early version that I was using with this would sort of take parts of it and fill it in as I go. I could ask questions of it. Why should we see? This is it's a little glitchy. Why should we care about AI in writing prompts? Let's try that. So what we could do here is, if we do K, we could do generate AI text, then try to go in this. So what I might do is I might break this line, and I could ask this question to it, and we'll see what happens. So what's asking for me to do here is Command K. Right. So two things. If you're thinking about outlining, you could do is here you might say, write 3 bullet points about why AI, why the public should care about AI and writing essays. So let's see. And what's kind of interesting here is like I actually need to delete this, but it's like a Grammarly sort of I don't know, app widget that's with it, and it's already correcting me. So I've kind of got like AI with AI here. It's very, very a bit weird to me. So in Lex, it's baked into its writing page that you've got. So we're going to click that. All right, so here's what it says. Why should we care about AI in writing prompts? AI has the potential to make writing easier, more efficient, and more accurate than ever before. AI can provide customized feedback tailored to a student's individual needs and level of ability, helping to improve writing skills over time. AI can help students to think critically and develop ideas through writing, enabling them to become better informed and more effective communicators. So here's the thing that we might think about. while we're asking this kind of question to this machine, right, especially to this assistant, we might say assistive artificial intelligence, we could argue, you know, when you're sitting with somebody in the writing center, this kind of dialogue happens. And so I don't know, I think like the person you're talking with could give you those ideas. And then similarly, like, let's say that you're sort of doing some research and you could find, you could sort of search this up. You might see these results, but what this is giving you is an efficient way of thinking about it. And I don't know, we don't see the opposite sometimes in these, where somebody, I guess your AI could ask you that kind of question, which is what we do in writing centers. We say, like, why do you think we should care about this? And then that's how we get those outlines. But in this case, we're just asking it for some ideas. So I could kind of take this, and I've got 3 potentially solid paragraphs I could work with and shape based on this bit of invention I've done with it. And that's what I'm mostly interested in for these. Okay, so I've asked it a question. It's giving me a response. Let's say I kind of layer this with my own thinking, like, let's unpack these points let's see if this understands what I'm going for, which is I may want to just build on it by following those kind of prompts. Okay, so I'll say, write 3 strong paragraphs about why we should care about AI and writing prompts. That's what I wrote before, or writing essays. Maybe I'll just try that one. See what it does here. I want to see if it does what I did the other day, which is it kind of cuts off the argument a little bit. And I'm not sure if that's because of my computer. But let's try it. Okay. So that's one thing I'm kind of seeing is when you, for this one, when you offer it, you ask it to write a couple points out. I don't know if it's my browser that's doing it, but like the argument is lost. So we should care about AI in writing essays because AI is a powerful tool that can help us improve our writing in unprecedented ways. AI can help us edit our writing to a higher standard, helping us learn to write better and more succinctly. AI can also be used to help us find the words and phrases we need to properly express our ideas, helping us to create more compelling, persuasive work. AI can provide us with a deeper understanding of language, which can greatly benefit from writing, from editing our work to helping us craft new essays from scratch. So what I might say, I'm kind of almost like doing a writing center appointment here with Lex itself. So, sometimes we come to a writing center and appointment and we have just a paragraph. Like we can kind of really unpack this a little further. So point 1, we should care about AI because AI is a powerful tool that helps us improve our writing in unprecedented ways. So we could do a lot with this first line, right? It's a jumping off point. I'm thinking about like what we could say further about this. We could hark back to like histories. Say like spell checkers, Grammarly, all that sort of stuff that may be helping us in different ways. It can help us edit our writing to a higher standard and helping us to learn better and to write more succinctly. So we could say, history of AIs in writing. Then we could say focus on current tech, including and let's say that we kind of tease that out, and then we have, let's say, something deeper understanding of language can greatly benefit writing from editor works, helping us craft new essays and ideas. Current conversation on ChatGPT And then what I might say here is, let's say like that is a skeleton of 3 really solid, I mean, I would say just not too specific ideas. Solid, but not too specific. Maybe in the sort of spectrum between really barely at all, like paltry to very interesting. We might sort of put it in that spectrum. But let's see. If I tell it to do this, write a strong concluding paragraph about AI and I'm going to add some emotion to this. I'm going to say persuasive using a known author. Let's just like see if we can make this more specific. What do we find here? And see, so we're getting cut off there a little bit. But here's something I'll tell you. So the command was use a source or something like that, and then we will tease it out from here. So by harnessing AI, we can tap into possibilities and power that the written word had never had before. Henry Jenkins. So I want to test this one. And this is kind of like a tip. We've been seeing this in some of our conversations at York about sort of citation and things like that. These AIs, I'm not sure yet that they're equipped to draw on these sources, but I want to test this because, as you'll see a little bit later, ChatGPT, when you ask it to kind of provide the sources and stuff, it'll give you an interesting response as a result. Okay, so we do this. Let's just see. Did Henry Jenkins actually say this? So here's what we know about Henry Jenkins. If you've never read his work, he is an amazing scholar who speaks a lot about fandom and so forth, fan cultures, participatory cultures, really cutting edge stuff about like the multi-literacies that we apply to web-based communication and digital culture. So very, very prolific author. Very much someone I looked up to and cited often when I was working on my early days of master's and PhD work. So I just want to see, like, this is the first result that came up. And if I just type in AI, does it say anything about that? And this is what I would do. I would do fact checking of this if there was a citation, right? I would not pass it off or pass it on as a draft unless I fact checked it, right? Because I've got to cite my sources anyways. And if this AI is just giving me something that's made up, I'm not sure I would just cite Lex as that source because it's not what Henry Jenkins said. It seems kind of obvious, right? But I think it still warrants actually stating it. Yeah, I'm not seeing that in here. Sometimes what I do if I'm trying to find a quote is I'll just put it into here and just see if I can actually find where it came from. Because you would think that if it's plugged in here, you could find the exact source, right? So we're not seeing it there. Unless, I do admit, like about an hour ago, I got an eye appointment, so I may not be seeing it, but I can see everything now at this point, so for the most part. But yeah, so it's a quotation that we're kind of starting with, and then it says, AI has the power to revolutionize writing, and this is especially true when it comes to writing essays. AI can be utilized to help students formulate and structure their thoughts more effectively. It can also assist them in researching and evaluating sources more effectively. AI can offer invaluable feedback to students on the content, grammar, and organization of their essays, enabling them to improve their writing. So again, what I'm kind of seeing with this one is it's not building on what has been previously written. So it's case by case, like, what I kind of assumed you might see sometimes with this is you would ask for like bullet points, for example. And then you could ask it to unpack those points further. So it would reference this previous work in order to help you build on it. But I've got an outline here, right? I might say that this is just another outline that we have. This is a thesis statement. It has the power to revolutionize writing, and it's especially true when it comes to writing essays. It's a start to a statement, but I'm not sure it needs a lot more sophistication to be like a powerful one we can stand behind. AI can be utilized to help students formulate and structure their thoughts more effectively. So Lex provides outlines, we might say. Also assist them in researching and evaluating sources more effectively. Now, what do we think of when we think of this line? I mean, a long time ago, I might say, and decades we could say even now at this point, which makes me feel very old. You know, like you would have to go to the library, do the research, and open the books, look at the microfiche to do this, and consult humans and material text to get your information. We now have algorithms and assistance through Google Scholar, Google Search, all of these sort of things that are helping us optimize how we search. So this isn't the first time we've been consulting, I would just say like computers and so forth, in code in order to get information and do work, especially writing, more effectively. Now that should come as a surprise to anybody. I just want to acknowledge that though. Like, so here, if we were thinking about this essay, we can look to Scholar, you know, and we've seen a lot of conversations about that kind of information literacy when you use Google Scholar, or not Google Scholar really, but if you use, you know, so a Google search engine, what's going to come up? How do you know that that's a credible source? It's difficult to tease out. So that might be an option, right? Like I think these do hold some interesting, it provokes some thoughts in me, but I'm not sure I wouldn't pass it off as my own. It can offer invaluable feedback to students on the content, grammar, and organization of their essays, enabling them to improve their writing skills. So it cut us off again there. What we could do is think about, again, like Grammarly or another source. And what are the top things? And, you know, as I'm thinking a lot about this one is, to me, is the most interesting and to try to unpack, to say more about. It gives me just some real generalizations. The trick is taking those generalizations and, you know, adding some sophistication to it, adding like your voice and so forth, or layering it in different ways with your own voice. You've got to kind of shell. What can you do to make it your own, right? How can you build? If you think about, even as like a sandbox, we could use that metaphor. This is giving you the kind of contours of the sandbox. What could you do in order to make it your own kind of sand, so to say? So this essay could just be about like an analysis of I can't type today, excuse me. AI. Writing tools. Writing and research tools. Think about Lex is you can format it, you know, you can add pictures, you can do things like that. But let's kind of take this further. So let me say, like, here, I'm just looking for some ideas. I could say, write a negative critique of Google Scholar in one paragraph. Okay, so it's telling me some things that have been largely in the public sphere, like relies on indexing journals and academic publications. So we're not going to see a lot in news and so forth. Again, a quick search, and there will confirm that for you. Furthermore, the majority of the content it provides is inaccessible due to paywalls. Yeah, I mean, it's going to give you that source, and it's mostly for academics, so we can kind of work there. Let's see if that seems to hold. It seems to track well with what I've seen. As such, many of the search results are not useful to the average user and altogether unavailable. This makes Google Scholar an inadequate resource for those looking for a wide range of information. Yeah, I mean, again, generalizations we have here, and I think like kind of thinking about not so much like using this in your own piece, but just kind of using it as a conversation point in a way that you could either rewrite it or use it as like, I guess, a hypothetical opponent to what you're arguing. So you may say, oh, this is a great resource. Very great for like the academic research I've been doing. And here's the sort of inner workings of how this thing came to be, but there are limitations. And here's like some ideas that we can maybe work from. I mean, because if you think about it, if you punch in a keyword in Google search engine or even Google Scholar, it's going to give you a lot of suggestions. This is what is happening right here before us, and we can decide to either work with it or disagree with it. So conversation building for sure. All right, so that's just some of the stuff we see here with Lex. I was really grateful to get my hands on it. I think, for a kind of start to what AI could do, this could be an interesting thing to kind of think about and even work with in classes. We'll talk a little bit later about how you might acknowledge that you've worked with these, especially right now, while I think everybody is trying to figure out how to kind of acknowledge and make use of these programs. So that's Lex. I mentioned ChatGPT earlier. It is, a model, a language model that is trying to interact with the user in a very conversational, but I might argue sophisticated way. Let me start with this preface. I'm going to read this just briefly as a kind of news report. And as I read it, I just want you to think about what may have been written by AI and what was written by me or this person. I may have already given it away, but bear with me. Okay, this says major snowstorm expected in the Greater Toronto Area or GTA. Calvin Reed, staff reporter. A major winter snowstorm is set to hit the Greater Toronto Area on Wednesday, bringing heavy snowfall and strong winds to the region. According to the forecast, the storm could dump up to 30 centimeters of snow on the city by the time it clears out. This is shaping up to be a significant snowstorm for the GTA, said Mark Schuster, meteorologist with Environment Canada. We're expecting heavy snowfall, strong winds, and poor visibility. Travel will be very difficult, and we're urging people to avoid non-essential trips if possible. The snowstorm is causing concern for local businesses. We're really worried about the impact the storm is going to have on our sales. That was from John Smith, owner of a small retail store in downtown Toronto. A lot of our customers rely on public transit to get to us. And if the TTC is delayed or disrupted, it's going to hurt our bottom line. The City of Toronto's transportation services are gearing up for the storm. The crew's out in full force to clear the roads. We've got all hands on deck for this one, said Jane Doe, spokesperson for the city's transportation services, urging residents to give our plows and salters plenty of room to work and to be patient as we work to keep the roads clear. The Toronto Transit Commission, TTC, is also preparing for the storm with extra staff and resources on standby. We're going to do everything we can to keep our buses, streetcars, and subways running as smoothly as possible, said TTC spokesperson Tom Brown. We're also reminding riders to plan ahead and allow time for their trips, as there may be delays. The Toronto District School Board and the Toronto Catholic District School Board have also announced that all schools and offices will be closed on Wednesday. As the storm approaches, residents are being urged to stock up on essentials such as food and medication, and to make sure they have a winter emergency kit for their vehicle in case they get stranded. This is a serious storm, and we're urging everyone to take it seriously and take the necessary precautions to stay safe. Okay. So what I did is a lot of us probably remember that last week we had this snowstorm, right? Like especially on Wednesday. Classes were not canceled, but people were going online or they were having to be delayed, and then buses and all that sort of stuff were canceled for a lot of schools, or were going to be, things like that. So as an exercise, I gave this to students in a class I'm teaching on Wednesdays, and I asked them to copy edit it, and fact check it, which is basically what that means is in kind of journalism circles and publication circles, you go through point by point and manually check the facts that have been given. Like that includes names, things like that. So the first thing that we checked was the actual submission. I said, can you find where this came from? And so I think they punched it in, and first of all, we didn't find that title, right? I had them look up who Calvin Reed was. Calvin Reed is actually a good friend of mine who is an editor with Publishers Weekly. Does amazing work. And, it just kind of, I put that in eventually. But then we started checking the rest of this. So 30 centimeters of snow. The researcher told us that it was about 15 to 20. We looked up Mark Schuster, who we could confirm was with Environment Canada. What we can't confirm is where this came from. And I'll start to show you this, so you get the idea now. If we go through this, we can find lots of different annotations. We get the shell of some stuff, but the only problem is when we start to fact check it, it starts to reveal its, fissures and cracks. So they were able to find Mark Schuster. Let's just look that up real quick. Severe weather meteorologist, no problem there. We were able to find who that person is. Concerns for local businesses. So we have one person who's quoted from this. Their name's John Smith. That's like a kind of stand-in name a lot of times, right? Who else was affected? What else was affected? Jane Doe, spokesperson for city's transportation services. The schools hadn't closed at the time, right? We were still in the middle of the storm. Who was doing the urging? This was written in past tense. And then we have a quote from Mark Schuster. So again, we started checking some of this stuff just to see, again, that we may not get sort of quotes and stuff that are lifted right from, another source. Not seeing that just yet. So this was written by ChatGPT. I gave it a command. I said, let's see, write a news story about a snowstorm happening in the Greater Toronto area using sources and references. So the first draft that we see here didn't have any kind of quotes from people. So I said sources and references. And then I wanted it to clarify what I was interested in. So later on, I typed in, write a news story about and this is similar to what we saw with Lex. Write a news story about a snowstorm happening Wednesday in the Greater Toronto area using people as sources and references. And this is what we got. We got this long thing. And I can just show you sort of what this response is so that we can see. Let's see, like they rewrite it for us a little bit. Regenerate response. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I want to tell you about this in just a second. So with ChatGPT, what you can do is if you give it like a specific genre, sometimes it will give you like a good output or like a shape of an article. And then from there, in theory, you could fact check it and then customize. That's what we talked about here. So what I might do with this is, let's say there was a storm or something like that. I could go through this and start deleting it. Fact check this, change it. I could. And I'm saying in the easiest way, I could do this. 15 to 20 of snow. Now, because this is a bogus quote, we would have to actually call Mark Schuster and get that information if we could, or consult like a press release, things of that sort. Because I'll tell you, like, one thing with this, I think this will pose a particular challenge to journalism, especially, or if you're doing any kind of like interview work, working on those sorts of things. You're going to have to provide your sources and your data. Like, I know some people who work for local newspapers are asked to provide the raw transcript and asked as well to provide the raw file from which the interview came, and that's just mostly for copy editing purposes. I don't know if it's more of a trust issue, but it's more for just ensuring that like the copy editors can go back and listen and clarify things as needed. So this is also causing concern for local businesses. Like, we don't know who this is, so we would have to fact check this as well. And again, we could even just do something like this. Start to take out these names. What we've got here is, the general way in which news operates, especially if it's just like quick hit news about something happening, that's going to happen. So we start off with like the major topical statement, like the kind of inverted pyramid they say sometimes in news. What's the most important thing we got to think about? A snowstorm is expected to hit the region, right? That's it. And then we layer that with quotes, right? Facts, quotes, facts, quotes, facts, quotes, typically in that way. So I would just say, like, for me, owner of X, I could take this out. And what I've got here are just some structure that I might be able to use. And there's nothing wrong with that, because we get those formulas all the time in our classes. I certainly give those to my students. You get those sometimes in calls for papers. Many, many other resources that are out there. The OWL, for example, which is a great writing center resource based out of Purdue in the States. They give you lots of different models to sort of work with. So what I'm kind of thinking now is this thing from ChatGPT may just give me it's a model program that's giving me models for writing. We could potentially keep this, but again, we have to fact check this by putting in our own quotes. Jane Doe, last time I checked, does not work for the city of Toronto. Okay, so mostly that's used like in a anonymous context for the privacy of certain folks. So yeah, produce something very interesting for me. I just needed some more information. Now, this is the news one. Let's make a new chat. And yes, thankfully it let me do it. So I was a bit worried about that. Unfortunately, like ChatGPT, it is like in a research preview phase. So highly, highly popular, and very hard to get into sometimes. Okay. And this kind of outlines what some limitations are. You can ask it kind of questions as you would with like Siri, right? Got any ideas for this? How do I do? And then how do I do these kind of things? And then actual writing prompts. All right. So, but it remembers what you said earlier. So it builds on that. You can ask follow-up questions. And I think rightfully so, it's trained to decline inappropriate requests. Take that as you will. It acknowledges it provides incorrect information. So again, like, I think what that tells me is we can't take it as is. It's a place to start. May occasionally produce harmful instructions or biased content. Okay, I haven't seen that yet, but I would be interested in seeing what that means. Limited knowledge of world and events after 2021. So we're at about like roughly 2 years behind, or 1.5 years behind, we might say. Okay, so let's say I do this. I'm gonna replicate two things that people had asked me about in a Discord chat recently with some students. So let's say write a scholarly analysis, say, of we can kind of go back to the same prompt we had with Lex on public arguments let's say write a scholarly argument about why public audiences should care about AI. And just to show you, like in the previous one, we would see kind of like bullet points if we asked for it. Things like that. We wouldn't see like fully complete paragraphs or long things that are longer than a paragraph. So let's just see like what happens when we punch this in. I already kind of know, so I'm excited to show you. But like again, this is the prompt we've been given. If you have other ideas for prompts, please put them in the chat. I'd love to like see what we can do with this. Write a scholarly argument about why public audiences should care about AI in writing prompts. So that's like a pretty broad. I could even just trim this down a little bit. Why educators? Hey, you know what? Let's just make it super meta. Write a scholarly argument about why writers should care about AI. And I keep saying prompts, but I'm going to say essays. All right, let's do it. Okay, so it's generating this text as we go. Okay, so that probably took less than a minute. It's ever given me like a title, AI's impact on writing. I'll just kind of touch on these highlights just for accessibility purposes. As the field of artificial intelligence continues to rapidly advance, it is becoming increasingly important for writers to understand the potential impact of AI on writing and the writing industry. So, that is, again, I'm just kind of thinking like if I were to workshop this, it's a start to be working with. So not much sophistication, like not much tension there with a thesis statement, something like that. What could we say to build on that to make it even stronger? It is becoming increasingly important for writers to understand the potential impact of AI on writing and the writing industry. It's important because, right, what's the thing? And they're kind of teasing it out here. Firstly, AI-powered tools are already changing the way we write. From spell checkers to grammar checkers to advanced writing assistants that can generate entire sentences and paragraphs, AI is changing the way that writers create content. In order to remain competitive in this rapidly changing landscape, writers must be aware of these tools and understand how to effectively use them to enhance their writing. Furthermore, the increasing use of AI in writing may also impact the demand for human writers. As they're able to produce more high-quality content, it is possible that demand for human writers will decrease. So they're kind of using some of those generalizations. It's always possible, yes. How could we sort of flesh this out, write it in our own way? Writers must be aware of the capabilities of AI and strive to develop skills that cannot be replicated by AI algorithms. So what we have are, two starts to a paragraph, and then we have the conclusion. In conclusion, writers should care about AI in writing essays because it has the potential to significantly impact the writing industry, including tools that writers use and demand for human writers. So we've got like a start to a 5-paragraph essay. It can't write unless maybe I tell it to. We can try that actually. I'd be very interested in seeing this. Like, write a 2,000 word um, analysis of Grammarly, for example. What could we get if we do something like that? So I will. I'm tempted. Every time I do the new chat, it wants to make something new for me. So I'm not quite. I'm hesitant to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. Right? We got to see how this goes. Yes, delete that, please. Okay. All right. So we're starting at the beginning. Let's go back. We could say new chat. All right. So they're doing this. I will punch this in to the beginning and see what we get. In the meantime, I will tell you this. I asked it to write, haiku poem, something about eating cucumbers. It's giving me these longer passages, but you can see that's the same shell. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, lastly. What's interesting about this is, it can even write poems and so forth. Like I was asking students for some ideas, like write a villanelle about cats and computers. And they were saying it really follows like most of these sort of forms of poetry. Write a sestina about cats, dogs, and the end of the world, plus Bob Ross. The end of the world, a thought so dire. Bob Ross paints serene, but I can't help but admire. And thoughts of cats and dogs, their fate so unsure. Will they survive? Will they find a cure? We looked at this and we're like, wow, it can do pretty interesting stuff. I had him write an emotional argument about the game Magic the Gathering, for example, and sort of what came out of it. Lots of possibilities here. I'm going to get more specific with it because this is where I start to get hesitant about its power, and I think would be interested in seeing how it develops from here. But let's see. I want to keep it manageable. Write a 1,000 word analysis of the writing software. Specifically asking for analysis. I'll even try this. I will try this. Write a rhetorical analysis of the writing software application, we can say. Let's see what we get. So when it's blinking there, it tells me that it's thinking, it's doing that searching. Interesting. Okay. Okay. I'm just acknowledging this as it's being written. I want to see what it does. And I think, this is what people kind of imagine happening. Like the person just punches in, sits back, and lets it write. I just don't think we're not there yet. But we've got a pretty long argument here that we can be thinking about. Okay, so I mean, it said it couldn't provide that much. It says, "I'm sorry, but the requested text exceeds the maximum allowed length for a response." So let me just punch this into Word and see about what we, we're kind of, what I'm trying to do with this a lot of times right now, while I'm understanding how it works, is seeing what kind of limits it has. We'll just keep the text only, right? So it's about 277 words. I mean, it would be working for a little while on this, and we'd have to sort of develop that much further. So it can't write an entire thing for us currently, given what it said its limitations are. But what we can do is we can try to push it a little further by saying, okay, you've given me this shell. Now, because it's claiming that it can build on prior conversations and so forth, what could we ask it to revise in some ways? And so I'll say, can you revise this analysis by including quotes from scholars? Now see how nice it is. You can just say, revise this analysis by including quotes from scholars. Okay, so it's writing it for us. Again, like, I kind of feel like sometimes when ChatGPT is doing this, I just punch in the quote and I kick back and let it do the work for me. Which, I guess is kind of true, I guess. But just watching how it unfolds is very interesting. Okay. So it's given us a lot more, I'd say like probably another 100 to 200 words we have here with, maybe 100 of quotations. All right. So that's the revision. I asked it for this prompt. Let's kind of, if you want to do this now, I'm actually interested in trying this real quick. Because I'm a writing nerd, I love writing studies. So let's just use like the good old compare tool. That's one. We'll do this. We will then save it and we'll say Grammarly is our writing application. So we'll start there. There's the tracks you can listen to that are playing right here on the channel right now. So we take version 1 and then we're going to take the second one and see what it has changed. So again, what I asked it to do in this case was to revise it to include quotes from scholars. I haven't even gotten into where those sort of came from, right? But we just want to see what the main changes were. And one little hit, sometimes this works well in writing classes if you are working on something, and especially if you're taking a class with me. It helps me a lot when I do this. I'll go, I will take the two versions and merge them together to see what changes were made, just so I'm ensuring not to miss anything. from our awesome writers. Okay, let's compare the documents. We'll take the first one and we'll go to here. I'm showing you all the things on my screen. Okay, go there, we go back to downloads, and then we'll go to version 2. And let's just see what changes were made. Okay, so we saw this was added, as Steven Pinker said, and Curzon and McWhorter, all folks who have been in the public sphere. So we've got about 365 words. So we added about, again, about 100 words, give or take. So what I would do is, if I were seeing this, and again, not coming out with a suspicious eye, but like, I just would not take it at face value. I'm not going to punch it in, kick back, and just say like, all right, that's good. I would want to know, is this what Steven Pinker has said before? Steven Pinker is a scholar. No results found for that, but we have things that are close to it. He does speak about clarity and grace. So you might say this is kind of paraphrased from it. We'd want to know. If we can't confirm it, we'd have to think about revising it in our own way, right? Let's see what Ann Curzon has said. Let's see. Okay. I just want to see this particular quote. If we take out like some of that other contextual information. Okay. So it's a concept in writing studies, but we may say that it's a couple of things that are missing as well. Page quotations, things like that. So let's see. Let's check this out. So trying to punch that in, not coming up. Scholar, language expert. Yep. So linguist, just like McWhorter. I'm going through all these. Like, these are things I've seen in the literature quite a bit, like scholars like McWhorter, Pinker, and Curzon as well. But are they actual quotes from the scholarship? We don't know. We don't know because we haven't been provided with references to it. Okay, so not seeing those, again, like quotations. So what I could do, and this is what you could do as well, if you're like, I need to kind of dig deeper into what's possible, or where I got it from. So it revised it to include the quotes, and what I'll ask it is, please provide the, I'm going to be really specific. So please provide links, the articles or sources of the scholars quoted in this analysis. And let's see what it does. So it's thinking. Okay, so this is where we start to see like some of those limitations a little bit. Please provide links to the articles or sources of the scholars quoted in this analysis. I apologize, but the quotes from scholars are not taken from a specific article or source and are not direct quotes. The scholars mentioned are respected in their field and known for their work, but I cannot provide direct link to their work on Grammarly specifically. And then, so I want to just ask it why. Okay. So what it's saying here again, just want to read this back. For accessibility purposes, I apologize for the confusion earlier. This is saying the quotes from scholars were not direct quotes, but rather paraphrase statements that reflect the general views of the scholars on the topic of grammar, language, and writing tools like Grammarly. I do not have a specific source or article that directly quotes these scholars on the topic of Grammarly. So what I'm kind of doing is just trying to get its most direct information from this. Like, in the past, what I've done is, like, I could say, yeah, I'll start a new chat here just so we can see how it works. But I've been given a shell and then I want to know more. It's kind of like me doing my own. It's kind of me asking it to do some fact checking or to help me with the fact checking, right? And so what it's done is basically taking paraphrasing, which is kind of taking a kind of concept in an argument or even a quote and writing it in your own words. So that you could avoid maybe doing block quotes and things of that sort. But what it's acknowledging, it's taking that idea and put it into quotations. So, that is the downside. What might be the upside of doing something like this? You've at least been given some names that are very well known in the fields of, let's say, AI and writing and so forth, or Grammarly specifically. Again, these are real people: Stephen Pinker, Ann Cruzen, and John McWhorter. I used to assign like a TED Talk in one of my first year writing classes about sort of texting language and things like that. So maybe like in a falsified way, you've been given some ideas that they've expressed, and it would be your job to basically, work with those suggested scholars to develop your own ideas. And we couldn't get too far with it currently, I would say, with it running like a full essay for us. But we get some ideas at the intervention stage, just like we get with these additional programs like Grammarly that suggest things for us. This is a bit more than suggestion, I would say. It's just prompting you for ideas, for more optimal ideas with specific commands. So let's see, what else could I do to this? I did ask this one something earlier. I said about let's delete this line. This is the second one. So if we were doing this in a news context, it's really easy to, basically find out that it's, an AI generated kind of text. I asked the same thing. Where'd you get your information? I'm a machine learning model, and the information I provide is based on previous examples of similar events that I was trained on. Again, it's a machine learning model. It's been trained by OpenAI to give potential sort of outputs this way. It goes on to say the knowledge that I have been updated with, but I don't have a source for the specific event, since I'm not aware of a specific storm happening in the Greater Toronto Area on a specific date. I apologize if my response was not clear. And I've kind of done this before just to be a bit cheeky. So I've said, so you lied to me. As an AI language model, I don't have personal opinions, intentions, or emotions. I generated the news story based on general information and patterns in my training data. That's the thing I think about. It's a language model, and it's giving us models back. That's the thing that I take away mostly from this. And we talked about that in class last week as well. You're not getting a news story that you can pass on. You're getting a model for what a news story might look like. And I think that's very interesting, and especially when you're kind of just in the ideation phase, or you're not used to a particular genre, for example. So it's based on previous information fed to it and reinforced, through OpenAI's kind of iterative processes. And it's basically kind of making use of the prompt that you've been given. I apologize, my response was not satisfactory or led to any confusion. I mean, this is probably the thing that, a number of educators, including myself, are kind of, I might say, sort of curious to see more of. I don't want to say concerned. I mean, it's unhelpful to just say immediately like we shouldn't use this, but it's also unhelpful to say absolutely use it in every case. I got to kind of toe that line a little bit right now. But I think like on the surface, I will say like the responses, they're I wouldn't say that they're satisfactory. Um, they're a start to what could be satisfactory, and they don't lead to confusion so much. So just that I would say more of wonder if I'm thinking about an emotion. Okay, where'd you get that information, um, and so forth. But I was kind of more poignant in this response to them. So, thinking about what we could do with it is interesting. Here's another thing I did. You can do stuff like this with this, and again, keeping in mind like it's modeling, it's giving you a model. The model is giving you a model, so to say. Um, so if you're wondering like, could professors use this? What could we do with this? Again, it's just it's giving you the contours or the boundaries of a sandbox. So let's do this. We say here, this is what my colleague Dr. C had asked me to do the other day. So write a detailed set of instructions about writing mm, writing an essay about software about virtual reality. We'll just say that because that's what Dr. C and I are both interested in. Let's see. Let's be more specific. Write a detailed set of instructions for students who are writing an essay about virtual reality. Now, this is the third genre we worked with. We talked about news, we talked about analysis, and now we're thinking like just something that may be less research intensive, and we're kind of thinking about other models and how things may look. So let's try that. Okay. This is giving me like, a lot of pretty straightforward advice, we could say. Okay, so this is very, basic, again, like a start for what we could do. Choose a topic, pick a topic related to virtual reality that you find interesting and would like to write about. For example, we could write about history and evolution, potential uses of applications, or the ethical and social implications. Um, you know, Very general research advice. Look at books, websites, take notes as you go. Write an outline, tells you how to sort of think about a thesis. After that, write the first draft, revise and edit, review it, cite your sources, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, um, all sort of things you would find on the web as well. It's interesting. It's just giving it to you in a coherent way. So it might speed up that process. So this is kind of like you know, a I'd say like a valid set of instructions. Like, and I wouldn't even pass this on. I would just be like, I need some advice on this. What do you have for me? And Siri could give us, numerous websites. This is just giving it like us a condensed source based on what it's been trained on. Okay, so now I can try to push it a little bit more. I could say, give me a rubric for assessing essays. Oh, yeah. So what I was wondering was it going to give me like a potential like point scale? Um, and think about so like content, organization, thesis, evidence, analysis, writing style, source usage, mechanics, all that stuff that we see like in rubrics. Um, so yeah, like if even let's say if you are working on a project and you're not getting like your professor doesn't offer a rubric, right? Which happens. There's nothing wrong with that. Like sometimes it's just easier to kind of come at it without that kind of lens. Um, for some of us who offer feedback, and so this for you could be like give me a rubric. You could ask it to give you a potential rubric that you could use to assess your own work. And I might do that. I might say, like, how could I use this to assess my own work? Something like that. So some ideas there for sure. What else is out there we can think about? So OpenAI has got some other stuff we could sort of think about, but I think I probably won't get into today. There's a sort of another thing they've got called DAO. I believe it's called EE, which does a sort of realistic images and art from a description in natural language. So if I were to sign up for this, let's just play around with this for a minute and see what we come up with if it lets us do anything. Okay. So and then here's something interesting now, just I'm saying on the cuff or off the cuff, like your creative co-pilot. Generate images from a description in natural language, easily make realistic targeted edits to images, create different variations of an image inspired by the original. So in a way, you could say that this is your rhetorical co-pilot. It's giving you some suggestions and models for getting work done. Let's try this one out because I'm curious. You get 50 free credits in your first month. Um, Bob Ross style about the apocalypse. I asked some of my colleagues for some ideas. I got to remember how to spell apocalypse. Apocalypse. Um, that's how we do it. So a Bob Ross style painting about the coming apocalypse. Because I said, what should I have people write about? And that's what they said. So, okay, let's try it. So it's going to make that for us. Now, sometimes these things need some time to think, and that's okay. We need to be kind to them. Hmm. Interesting. So it's giving us more specifics, say pixel art, for example. All right, let's see what happens. It's thinking. Okay. Here we go. We got like the apocalypse, right? I don't know, folks. I've been like on a huge Bob Ross kick lately, so like I think that this is very interesting. You can kind of it's using like color schemes and so forth, variations. Let's see. I'm not sure what that's doing. I'm just playing around here for a second. Um, something. In my notes still, so check. Still giving me some ideas. Okay, so it's giving me some variations on that particular one. So you might say like it's not the, you know, I might be able to pass this one off, but the others, let's do this. So there's one thing I wanted to look up. Just bear with me. I have a suggestion that was given to me about what to do with these kind of citations and so forth. The biggest takeaway we want to think about from this is if we are using these programs for writing ideas, what do we do with acknowledgments? Are we ethically responsible um, for citing them? And there was a helpful tool that I saw from um, the York community about how to do that, and I needed to pull that up. I apologize that it's not right in front of me. Had it and then went off into somewhere else out in the world. So give me 1 second, and we could do this. Do our two-factor thing. So the one thing that we're seeing now is if you are using these, it is best to acknowledge that you were in fact doing it. So let's look at this real quick. This real quick. ChatGPT. You want to give credit where credit's due, just like with your sources, essentially. And this is what was shared with me. So, what we're seeing here is you're going to see more of this out in the world, especially if you're in writing different situations. We can do things like if we're sort of presenting them, we can ask about sort of fact checking and things like that. Some people will just sort of put it completely, just a clamp on it and say like, don't use it at all. There are things now like the OpenAI detector, things like that can tell you sort of where it came from. So what if I were to plug this into what I was finding before? Let's just see. This may not let me back in, unfortunately. Variations really aren't that different in this one, by the way. Let's look at this. Let's see. The output detector. We have this previous one. So let's see what this does. Okay, so this one, I mean, I just had used this from a link that was provided by faculty in the liberal arts as a detector. So, it's certainly possible we could do things like that if we're messing with it. It tells me it's about 4% real, so that might mean that the spirit of what these scholars were saying is real. Also just keep in mind that there are things like Turnitin that could potentially detect this kind of stuff. I was trying to find this and I'm unable to right now. I apologize. I'll put it in the notes later on in our chat. But there's also a way to actually cite ChatGPT. And oh yeah, this is one that was provided to me. So let's say that you asked a prompt. I'm going to put this right in the chat for you all. This is something that we could think about. So, if we do use something like ChatGPT, what they're recommending, and I think this is tracking with what we're seeing like elsewhere in the lit. I keep deleting this. What is wrong with me? Is to cite where it came from. So the version date of which you accessed it, or the date of access, and then what the prompt was. So you could add any of those sort of things. So for this, I might say, I go back to instructions for virtual reality. What they're recommending is you could write it like you could layer that with something like this. So on today's date, which is February 1, happy new month, everybody. Feb 1. Prompt was this. Write details of a set of instructions. And then I could do the date of access, which is here. Right. And you might be thinking like, okay, well, I don't know if I want to like raise any alarms when I do that, but what they're saying is it's better to do that than to just pass it off, without any of those acknowledgments, right? Because like if this is like an assistive device or like a rhetorical, let's say, collaborator for the work you're doing, it's important to still acknowledge where it's coming from, right? Unless you just, I don't know, maybe it's tricky because we don't have like um, some hard fast rules and things like that for this. So it's kind of exciting because I don't know. I think if I radically change everything and rewrite the whole thing, and I've got the model for this, would I acknowledge ChatGPT? I don't quite know. If it gives me a model for a news story, but I've changed every single word, and I just know that like we have paragraph quote. Like, do I acknowledge ChatGPT in this? Not quite sure. Yes and no. I like to be kind of vague in this because it's so cutting edge, right? We're thinking about this kind of critically right now. Okay, so with all that said, we talked about these two programs. We got to play around with them quite a bit and see what's possible. I'm just going to go ahead and end at this point, and I want to say thanks so much for hanging out while we do this, watching along as well. It's a very timely thing we're addressing writing and as artificial intelligence. We didn't get so much under the hood about these kind of programs, but we got to play around with them. And that's what people are doing in public. Amazing kind of computer scientists and startup programmers and so forth have done all this work to make this possible. And now as writers, we're responsible, I think, for really seeing what we can do, what kind of limits we can, how far we can push this to the limits. So anyways, really enjoyed doing this. I'm sure I'll come back to it again. Some of my colleagues are even proposing awesome classes about this very topic, and are giving more talks. Have this sort of planned later on. There are talks all over the university happening now and in the public sphere. So just to recap, we'll be here up through April 5th. We've got a number of things planned over the next few weeks, from talking about anti-racism and writing, collaborating, virtual reality, coming back to that, lots of other things. So if you have ideas on this topic, or you have other prompts you want us to punch into this chat, potentially for another follow-up stream, let me know in the comments. Other than that, have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next week. Bye.